Man, I don't know about you, Russo, but I don't know, man. I think we kind of look good.
Why does that picture make it look like you're really short?
Right now. Oh, well,
Well, I
maybe
mean, it looks like, oh, you're my little buddy down there. Hey, little buddy. But you're actually, I mean, you're 6'2" also, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah, we're
I
both
am.
same height. That picture would fool a lot of people because it makes it look like I'm kind of doing the whole, hey, little man, my little friend Rocky. Hey, yo.
Dude, I just remembered what picture that came from too, because I was doing one of my weird poses while we were doing it, so I was all crouched down. That's right. And then you had your hand. So the reason his hand was on top of my head wasn't
You dropped the soap.
think.
You dropped the soap. Did you drop the soap?
Sometimes I do it on purpose just to see who's willing to go for the challenge. You know,
When you were incarcerated, were you in jail or were you actually in prison back in your?
I was in state, bro. I was in state.
Is that, I mean, I know a lot of people that have served, and everybody tells me that the whole drop the soap, oh, watch out for the big man. I've heard that's for the most part bull crap.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's fun to kind of go along with stuff like that. Lots of times, places I've been at, they don't have community showers. They probably got rid of community showers for that reason.
Yeah.
But I can tell you stories to where there are some people that have been manhandled so bad that you could smell them from another cell block. Does that make sense? Can you put that together?
Yeah. So so it got a little graphic in there. What about the
drop soap? Because if you're a target, if you're one of them, or if you do something, you don't need to wait till somebody drops the soap because it's going to happen. They call it court. I got a big problem with it, but you go to court. That means that there's an inmate who's in charge of that block, and he's the judge, the jury, and the executioner.
No, it's called an executioner.
Yeah, executioner. They have different things like they whip you with the wet towel 20 times for punishment, dude. I'll lose my shit. I'll be like, somebody go ahead and try to tell me that you're my authority in this cell block and try to tell me you're going to whip me 20 times because I did something you didn't want me to do in this cell block. That's the real living of that. You want to talk about segregation? Completely segregated. Mexicans are with Mexicans. Italians are with Italians. It's just the way it is.
So did they do the one thing I also heard that they do is they when you get out, when you get out, your buddies beat the crap out of you. Is that a real thing too? Like the day before you're supposed to get out, you get like a whooping from your friends?
Yeah, no. Ain't happening. No.
I guess that's dependent on the jail. I mean, I had an old roommate that served some time for heroin. I know it sounds like, we're a little rougher and cooler than we are. Trust me, we were completely lame at this point in our life. Yep. And I again, this was a roommate of mine, but that was the thing. Everybody knew that the day before, maybe I don't know, what different prisons. You were in state. They were in actual federal. No, I don't know what they were in, but needless to say, their buddies.
Well, federal is that's a pretty big league shit. If you're in federal, yeah, that's stuff you're going up against the government, so there are like J6ers, they're in federal.
Right. Well, some of them are still in jail. So I've heard the level is this: jail is the worst. Federal can be the second worst, or it could be the easiest depending on what your crime is.
Right.
And then state is right in the middle.
No, county local jails are the easiest.
See, that's not, I've heard the opposite.
Well,
because if you're in the group with if you're in a Baltimore, like the Baltimore County.
All right. Yeah. So let's go back. Let me step back. From my experience, the counties have been a lot easier than the state level. Okay. Right. But you are correct. And you saying that did make me step back. And that's why I had to reverse it, because there are some counties, bro, in different cities, South Chicago, different counties. There's certain places that if you go into a county, you don't have the protection that you do in the state, right? So you're kind of like, in some of those places, man, you pray to God you don't ever go to. You just don't, in my situations, I was always kind of transported in more of the outskirts of the different types. It was never really the inner city ones, because I was smarter. I knew where to get arrested at, and I knew where not to get arrested at. That's the real thing.
Cash was in DC and with the J6ers, Cash Lee Kelly, and he had a harder. So that was the worst place he was in, was DC, because of obviously that's when they were still keeping them from going outside ever, keeping them from having they were really on this ridiculous lockdown. And the worst part was they were in the wing right next to the gangbanging group, like the gangbangers and the roughest of the rough, because they had it separated, the ones that were there for potential alleged murder, and then they had the J6 wing, which was right next to each other, and then they had all the other stuff mixed about. The crazy part is they were being treated worse. Bunch of 50-year-old, 60-year-old Republicans were being actually treated worse than the murder wing, potential murder wing. That's a fact.
What does that tell you, man? You know what I'm saying? Really, what does that tell you? You go into a place and pedophiles get treated better than people that were let into a building and then walked in, and 98% of them peacefully didn't do a damn thing.
Extremists. Yeah, Cash ended up getting a month concurrent month service, and he spent 1.5 to 2 years in that jail, in that situation, and when he got the actual ruling, it was a month. So crazy. Anyways.
Wait a minute. So he had to sit for 2 years to get sentenced, and his sentencing was a month.
Well, there's a gray area to it. So he was sentenced because of a gang crime from 2010. So they rushed they took too long to do his sentencing. He cooperated in 2017. To give the whole backstory, didn't cooperate to the point where he gave up names, but didn't do anything where he was pushing the envelope. He admitted what he was a part of and all that stuff. The worst people that were in the same role as him, the ones that did not plead guilty, got 4 years. Cash was being told that he would most likely get house arrest or community service. Then January 6th happened, and the judge made a whole point during his sentencing on February of 2021, made a whole point that he was sentencing him based on the fact that he broke parole and did what he did at the Capitol, which he did not truly break parole. His lawyer filed the wrong paperwork and there was a mistake. Regardless, he ended up getting the full 4 years that people that did not cooperate, that he did not. So he technically was sentenced twice for the Capitol. And the Capitol, when he actually got found guilty, it was parading. It was a parading charge, parading conviction for 1 month. If you guys are watching this right now, like this, share this video, please comment, let us know where you're from, do all the things. There's probably going to be a slight delay, so we're probably not going to be looking much at comments, but go ahead and make sure you're sharing this episode of Rocci and Russo Experience, the Wednesday night special.
Hey, by the way, big shout out to everybody over there at opslens.com and of course Spreely.com. Dude, Anthony, I got to tell you something, man.
Is it Spreely.com or Spreely.tv? It's Spreely.com.
Sorry, Spreely.tv. Okay. Thank you, bro.
I do what I can.
OpsLens has this thing because we know Spreely, you can get a ton of media, national media there. You go to opslens.com and try this out for 30 days. Just try it for 30 days. You get global news, all translated, unbiased, unfiltered. Okay, so it's not being filtered like the mainstream media gets things that happen around the world and they kind of decide, or the masters do, on what we hear and what we don't. If you are truly into trying to understand what's going on around the world, and you truly are a person like we are that want to kind of have our thumb on the pulse of humanity a little bit, then we need that information. We can't just use 3 or 4 sources we have here. We need the broader scope of information. Try it out, 30-day free trial, opslens.com. Get it done.
Speaking of 30-day free trial, this wasn't a 30-day. This was a 1-day free trial. You were asking before because I said I still have not showered yet from the Hot Works class. You've never heard of Hot Works?
It's hot, bro.
Hot Works.
What are you doing there? Is that the yoga?
It's yoga, Pilates, spinning. It's all the different things, and they're all in saunas at 125, 130 degrees, which I don't mind cardio. I could do cardio all day, but they call it a bonfire when you do the HIIT workout, which HIIT workouts, the high intensity is either the spinning or these full body like spinner things. What?
In a sauna?
In a sauna. Yeah. They're like in these little boxes, which I was the maximum height. I came to the conclusion because I did the bike and I hit my head. But anyway, it's called a bonfire if you do 1 12-minute HIIT and then go to the Pilates or the yoga or whatever core for the 35-minute class. But I added to it because we were waiting around for the other one. So I did what we're calling an explosion. I renamed it, even though I'm not a member there. Kelly is. I did the high intensity 12 minutes doing this. I did 12 minutes spinning, which is where I bang my head when I was doing the tap it back thing. It's not quite big enough for us dudes. And then lastly, we did the Pilates. The Pilates in the sauna was, I mean, I was drenched with sweat, struggling to get any move. It was awful.
I just want to go watch the yoga part.
In a small little hot box, it's terrible.
Yep. With other people?
No, I mean, the 3 people can fit in there. So really, it was just Kelly and I. It was just Kelly. I mean, there could be a third person, but you like reserve it beforehand. I don't know.
Oh.
I mean, I like working out in high heat. I dug it. It will not be. I mean, I'm gonna stick with the gym, and Kelly will do that. That'll be her thing. Unless she won't.
What's the purpose about the high heat? Just to sweat? Does it help you sweat?
Just sweat, and it opens up the pores a little bit. It just opens up the body. Opens up the flexibility of the body. Even though I felt like I was running out of salt and my feet were cramping up when I was doing different stretching. It was a lot. Like, I'm in pretty decent shape, but Pilates is not my strong suit in terms of strength.
TK does that every morning, dude. I don't even know what it is. I just hear the word all the time.
I would love to watch TK doing Pilates.
What do they do?
It's yoga with core. It's core yoga. I guess the way that I would describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see TK. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I definitely would be entertained.
I can see TK showing up every morning, irritating the shit out of everybody because he's always has something to say when people are trying to focus.
To give people that don't know who TK is, he's what is he in his early 50s?
Yeah, he's 52.
He's in great shape. When I had really started talking to TK, I heard he was going to be trying to be the first collegiate football player in his 50s. He was going to go back and do a little court. He said he could still play.
Of course.
So I want to see this. What's that?
Of course. I think I still got another season of me, dude. And that is damn near impossible. I can't even run.
So do you think that TK could do a year at quarterback at maybe a D2 school type thing?
Maybe.
I don't know.
If he has a good line. You got to have a good front line because he's fragile as shit. Okay.
He's a big boy, though. He's not.
Doesn't matter, dude. It takes longer to heal.
I can understand that.
You know what I'm saying, man? I mean, bruises take a lot longer to heal than what they used to.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. So there's Jason Spangler. He was he a punter or a kicker? He was 52 when he played.
But that's a punter. All they're doing is kicking.
That's
I mean, if he gets hit, he's out for the year.
You know what I mean? Totally.
Speaking of sports, Rangers playing as we speak right now. They are they're one game away. So I mean, again, we have viewers from all over the country. People don't care about the Rangers. I could tell you that when I talked to the people at Fox, the last thing they wanted during the division or the pennant series race, they did not want the Rangers versus the Diamondbacks. That was their least favorite. They wanted, because everybody loves to hate Houston. So they wanted Houston versus the Phillies, the two bigger markets. And well, we got this, which has been a great series for those that still love baseball. Do people still, I mean, I'm a baseball fan. Do people still love baseball?
Here's the weirdest thing is that we're right here. I mean, we are literally, you and I both can be to the stadium, me within a half an hour, you within an hour and a half. And I'm just not feeling World Series.
I would. If I wanted to spend the money and drive out there and I wasn't busy. Well, right now it's in Arizona anyways. The weekend I'm going to be in Austin for Big Noon Kickoff. So I can't drive to it.
I just don't know what. Maybe because it's not my team. I don't know. I just don't feel. It's the Twins, man.
Do they still have a franchise?
Kind of. They hold it together with a little duct tape, but they're still there. Dude, I'll tell you something, man. I got to go hang out with Kirby Puckett at his cabin in Deer Lake, Wisconsin for an entire day. You want to talk about the most humbling experience, bro, because you meet a lot of celebrities and a lot of people, you know, you're just kind of like, yeah, you know, sometimes it's better just not knowing them and just appreciating their work, you know. Lots of times in the athletic field, you know, very good athletes gain a big chip on their shoulder. And I guess it just kind of happens over time. I had to go to Kirby Puckett's house. I knocked on the door, his cabin, and I heard him walk into the front door. I was nervous as shit. I had butterflies going through my stomach. I didn't know what I was going to say to him. And of course, he was bigger now, and his eye, he had surgery on the eye, so he had the bad eye now. And one of the most genuine people I've ever met. He stayed humble through his entire career. He let me stay at his cabin with him and his family all day. We barbecued, we fished, we did. It was just like I was a stranger. And this dude just welcomed me in for an entire day with him and his family, bro.
Kirby was a legend. Absolute
legend, dude. 100%. I mean, that was first class.
Talking about a guy that was not built to be an athlete either. Like his body wasn't, but it wasn't even that he was good. He was the best. Like when the Twins won the World Series, he essentially told his team, for people that don't know the story, he literally said, was it game 6 or I can't remember what it was. What year did they win the World Series?
I can't. 92, 91,
91. I think it was 91.
89?
91, I think.
Okay. All right.
I think 4 games side of the final pitch. He essentially going into game 6. That's right. They got the early lead. Chuck Noble. I think it was 91. In game 6, he literally, this little short, chubby son of a bitch told his team, he goes, just play the best you can. I got us. Like that's some legend status. I mean, that's a Kirk Gibson status. Yeah. That's like people that don't know the story about what Kirby Puckett told his team. He's like, you guys just be out there, be present, and I will take us to the promised land. And he with the body that was not like a Mark McGuire or a Jose Canseco, he was able to like he was the least athletic, best player in Major League history. Him and Tony Gwynn. But again, I think Kirby Puckett did more in the postseason, so I'd have to go with Kirby Puckett. He was a legend, and I can't believe. Before you look, what year do you remember? Do you think he died? He passed away.
I'm going to say 2011.
06. It's been almost 20 years.
Holy shit, dude!
Crazy. I just looked it up. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, I was crushed when he died. I was crushed. I almost wanted to go down and share the story. They did a big thing at the Metrodome where they gave people that opportunity. I almost wanted to share that with people because that was a pretty profound story to let some stranger just hang out with you all day.
Yeah.
He's been meet the ballified, you know?
Meet the ballified. Yeah. And he backed it up. It was the 11th inning in game 6 on that he won the game. To send it to game 7. He hit the home run.
Home run. Yep. That's right. That's right. And maybe that's why when I tell you that I don't feel it, maybe because I am resorting back to my experience with the World Series when Kirby Puckett and Kent Herbeck and all them guys were part of
Knobloch.
Yeah, man. You know, and I remember that time and I remember being so involved and I loved baseball all my life. And you're right, brother, because you go back to the 1920s and 1930s. Man, what did you do on a weekend? You went to the ballpark with your family. You went to go watch a baseball game. You know what I'm saying? You sang the 7th inning songs. You know, you talk to some of the older generations and some of the best memories they'll ever share with you were the times they were at the ballpark as a kid with their father or their mother.
Absolutely.
And we've lost the simplicity in that. We've lost it.
What I do, and it's not the simplicity, it's the fact that our attention span has gotten so short that it doesn't fit baseball. And I mean, we're doing the softball game this week. I used to do the women's softball championship in Oklahoma City. And as somebody that loves baseball, I understood why the viewership was as good, if not better, for women's softball than men's baseball, because in the world we live in, things have to be this fast. And the level of play for women's softball is fantastic. The bang bang plays and the fact that the game was over in an hour and 45 minutes, it was viewer friendly for the 21st century. What they've done with baseball, like, did you know that this year there's a shot clock?
Yes.
Yeah. Huge difference. And I know I was talking to my mom. They're like, well, how does a pitcher learn to throw in 20 seconds when they're, you know what? You better adapt because
there's a clock, right? For the pitcher to see. There's a
there's one. I think there's one off to the side. They see when they have to be set and go. I like that. I mean, I understand sometimes using the slow pitch and all that stuff, but it's not that effective at the end of the day. And all you're doing is losing a fan base. And I think that I think that was an important shift in baseball to try to speed things up. And I'm watching these World Series games. Usually World Series games can be 9 innings and they literally take 4 hours and 12 minutes. These games have been going super quick. I think they're a little bit more exciting. It does cut down on beer sales, I'm sure. But I think it really moves the game to a more modern level. And I think it's helpful personally.
Well, and I think you're right too. I think that it's that because what do we do as entertainers, right? We're always trying to figure out ways to fill the dead space. Right. You know what I mean? And that ain't easy. And in baseball, before they made these rules, man, there was a lot of dead space. What's the number one reason why people will tell you they don't watch baseball? Because it's boring.
Boring. Yeah. And it's a different game. It's a game for people that have grown up playing and watching it. Because if you don't understand the intricacies, I get why it's not the most interesting game. And I think it's funny because that's America's pastime. And ironically enough, when we talk about politics and we talk about the fact that patriotism just isn't cool anymore, well, either is baseball. So it's like, how do you make these things cool again? How do you make patriotism cool again? Speaking of patriotism, Christianity, stuff like that, do you celebrate Halloween? We talked about this a little bit on Truth Will Set You Free last night.
Yeah, I kind of suck. I kind of suck. I love Halloween. I do. I've always have. I always kind of looked at it as a day as it allows people to actually become who they really want to be. You know what I mean? Because we pretend to be something else the rest of the year so people can dress up in their little costumes and become the little vampires or the little doctors or nurses or cheerleaders or transgenders or whatever, search your boat, right? I love the fact of Halloween in the sense of community. I love it in the sense of when I was younger, my boys were younger, the experiences we had because it was a really old neighborhood and everybody got into it. So it created a really cool experience. That's the version of Halloween that I like because it produces family value.
You know, that's interesting. You know, it's the second biggest consumer holiday behind Christmas.
Halloween.
It's
not Mother's Day.
Nope. No.
Shocking.
My interest, because I didn't. So my mom was a born again Christian. You know, her history is Jewish, her ethnicity or her background is Jewish. So born again Christians are typically more like gung ho Christianity in their first few years. So she converted to Christianity when I was very young. I was 16, 17 months when I had a febrile seizure and almost died. That was when she was in the ambulance behind, or she was in the car behind the ambulance and her friend was like, have you given your life to God? And that's when, so she was gung ho. So I did not celebrate, Halloween until I was like 8 or 9 years old. Cause it was deemed demonic.
Oh my God, bro. No.
But do you know how many Christians that's a thing today? And I understand why they can feel that way, but like we're just talking about with patriotism being cool, like we're talking about, like we need to reinvent the wheel. This isn't about reinventing anything, but this is about succumbing to fun. You know, if you're trying to sell it, and that's the hit. And again, I'm repeating myself from last night, but the history behind a lot of these pagan holidays, Christmas being one of them, it just matched up with the winter solstice festival. The whole purpose of the Catholic Church then, which I think the Catholic Church is absolutely dead today, but the purpose then was in order to bring people to God, let's find a way to incorporate these fun holidays these fun pagan holidays, and find a way to make them part of also Christianity to make it more appealing. Nobody knows the day that Christ was born, but you know what? Let's put it on the winter solstice area. So there's a point. Easter is the same way. Halloween, Saints' Day was during the summer. For Catholics, for the good saints. So what they did was they combined the pagan holiday with theirs to try to make it cooler. It's not about the devil. Look, if there's a party, Rocky, that you might have that your kid wants to go to, and you find out they're literally doing a witchcraft, witch spell party where you have to dress like a demon, maybe not the right one to go to. But if everybody's having a good time, it's not about anti-Christianity. It's about just enjoying life, in my opinion.
I just think we just get too caught up in that, man. We just get too caught, because I remember when my boys were little, people would put signs in their yard to let the world know how much they didn't recognize that holiday, and it's just like, you could have just shut your light off and just not answered the effing door,
My mom goes to a movie. She goes to a movie, which is fine.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, go.
I don't see anything wrong. Same thing with Santa Claus and the reindeers, and it was on Joe Rogan, and I think I actually have it on my TikTok, but there's a story behind Santa Claus and the Christmas trees, and why is Santa Claus the big red man, and all these little subliminal things all going back to somebody tripping out one time, and this is how all these visuals of Christmas came along,
Yeah.
I'll try to find that video and I'll send it to you. Maybe next week we'll play it on the show, because Joe Rogan actually explained it really well, the comparisons of the two.
Yeah,
And,
that'd be good.
you know, that's why, brother, I brought it up. I know we're kind of sidetracking here, but when I brought up on the last show on Monday night about when I was talking about the continents changing and this bridge that they have that are holding continents, and they're talking about there's these catastrophic events that have happened. We talk about the floods because they're referring to the Noah's Ark. And then they were saying that these floods have happened in the past more than once, where there was this major flood and wiped out civilization. Because I get attacked for saying that I consider the seeding theory. Maybe we were seeded here. Maybe we were humans on a different planet. Like, we're trying to get people to Mars right now. Maybe we're just trying to keep our existence alive. When you have civilizations that get wiped out, because I always wondered when we talk about history and we look at some of the technology that was used to build some of these things 4, 5, 6,000, 10,000 years ago, and then everything is gone. We don't know. We have no documentation. We have no tools. We have no concept of how they did things. And it was like a reset. If human civilization reset again, let's say there's a continent break, shift, earth flooded, man had to restart again. Do you think Christianity would rebirth itself?
Because of my faith that it's got, the universe is based off of God, and not just this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to make a long story short, yes, I think, because I think that's the guiding force of Christianity, that no matter what, that is what we believe in. The question then becomes, well, if we're reseated, if we're replaced, and we're doing all these things, then the story of Christ might be a little bit different. You know what I mean? Just because obviously we believe Christ happened in 2,000 years ago, and if we're being reseated on a new planet, then the history changes a little bit and the thoughts change.
Well, this will really tickle your brain, because there are actual multiple stories of people exactly similar to the Jesus story that were born of a virgin mother, that were able to produce miracles, that were a son of a greater being. There's multiple stories before Jesus that have the exact same storyline behind it. That's why I pulled out of that whole realm of conversation, because I am a Christian person, right? I'm not a big biblical guy. Maybe for reference, or maybe to like the Adam and Eve story. I find something how I can compare it into real-time life. I just look at myself as somebody who wants to be just, I don't know, what did Jesus preach? Treat others how you want to be treated. And I figure just try to be the best person you can in life. And I think that's all that my God, hopefully everybody's God, just wants from us, is to recognize bad and good and do the best you can to be good. You know what I'm saying?
That's called a lukewarm Christian, and I'm one of them. I've worn that badge with honor, because I don't think the Bible thumping, Halloween sucks, you must believe everything, fire and brimstone. I think that's completely fine to be that kind of Christian, but I don't believe it actually grows Christianity. I think it shrinks it.
I don't think that that's the love that Jesus preaches, though.
I don't think it is. You're right.
You know what I'm saying, brother?
Yeah. But again, we're humans, so we're allowed to interpret the Bible in a certain way. And if that's the interpretation, again, I don't think it's kind. I don't, they're like, oh, you're gay. Well, if you are gay, you'll never go to heaven. Ugh. I've always, this is such an existential dilemma, but like, what if there's a good Muslim kid born to a good family, and all he ever learns is the Muslim faith? He's ends up dying at 60, 70 years old. And, Christianity was never given a fair shake in his culture, but he did everything good. He raised his family well. He was kind. He maybe, said Sharia law isn't for me. And he just lived as a Muslim and believed in that faith. And you're going to tell me he doesn't go to heaven because there was really no fair chance for him to be a full Christian? I have trouble believing that. I'm sorry.
I got a big problem when people try to throw that on my dinner plate, bro. I got a big, same thing, bro. Hey, same thing with the paranormal field, right? I've been over a decade. I've been in the paranormal field, and it's just like some of these people will sit down and tell you exactly everything, exactly how it is when you die, what you're going to see, how it's going to happen. They're going to tell you about all the alien. It's like they tell it to you like they have 100% factual evidence on their plate. And if you go against what they say, then you are wrong, absolutely wrong. It's just like, how do you know what you know? And
have you heard about that new movie that's out? That's actually what my mom went and saw last night. I want to see the movie. Have you heard? It's called After Death.
Oh no, what?
It looks great. It got really good. It's done by the what's that studios, like the Faith Studios or Angel Studios. I wonder what Rotten Tomatoes gave it. So After Death is a 2023 American film written and directed by Stephen Gray, Chris Radke. Film chronicles it's a documentary essentially. Chronicles the stories of various near-death experience survivors and features analysis of these events by authors and scientists as they try to determine what happens after we die. From the little preview that I heard from her, sounds really interesting. So as usual, it's a Christian movie, and the tomato meter from the experts is 36%. Audience score is 88%. Of course. So the one thing that carried through to most of these, and not all were good experiences. They said, I think there's like a 13 or something percent have a very negative near death experience. But the one that they all could recant is what was happening on the operating table. Like, what tools were used. Like, they saw their body while they were there. That was one of the elements that was all very, very consistent, that even the cardiologists, the doctors were like, that's tough. Like, some of the other stuff where they saw the other side or the light, I don't know. I got to watch the movie, but that stuff was a little bit more arbitrary.
There was one story where the doctors kept telling this lady that she was nuts. And so she said she didn't just see them working on her, but she also said she went above the hospital and she was able to explain what was on the roof. And there was a shoe. There was like a red sneaker somewhere in a really weird spot. And she goes to the doctor. She goes, go to the roof, go to this spot, and there's going to be a shoe there. And somebody went up there and there was a shoe up there, which was just fascinating.
You can't deny that stuff. So and it's just, I mean, to me, it's like, I'm not somebody that is afraid of dying. I think the older I get, the more fearful I think that I think about it a little bit more. But it's still not something I'm afraid of. But I can't imagine not believing in heaven. If I didn't believe in heaven, if I didn't believe in an afterlife, I would be absolutely mortified of dying.
Well, let me ask you, with all the experiences that I've had, 95% of them negative. What is that? You know what I'm saying? Because there is something in an existence beyond our sight, touch, and feel, right? It's beyond. We can't, but somehow they can with us. Malevolent stuff. Not all of it, I maybe got a couple really cool stories, but the most are all pretty dark shit. So I always believe, brother, if that exists, then there has to be somewhere way better than where they're at. Right. Because that ain't my version of heaven. Sure as hell no. Hell no. I don't want to be stuck in a basement for the next 400 effing years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
I sleep with the light on.
Yeah, or whether it's a basement or just the end. Like, to take away heaven and hell, like, to just think that it's a bookend that just everything stops. Like, think about the people that get in a car accident that they die instantly. Like, the lights go out and there's nothing. Like, that to me is even scarier than hell. I have to.
I'm going to ask you something. I'm going to ask you. Here we go. Ready? Going to push it. I'm going to trigger people watching, and I want your opinions too, folks. What is your thought on suicide?
Well, I grew up being told that if you commit suicide, you live in purgatory forever. Like, you never go to heaven and hell, which I don't know. To me, that one's very difficult because that to me is hearsay. Like, well, and then you have to go deep into the Bible, and you kind of, and not only, it's not like the Bible is like, if you commit suicide, because it's all translation to centuries, millennia old stuff. So to me, I have trouble believing it unless it was a fear tactic to make sure people didn't commit suicide. And there's too many good people that I know that have lost the battle with mental illness. I don't want to think of it that way. I can't. So I'm going to say that my childhood belief system, my young adult belief system, I don't believe is fully accurate in that, because it's not tangible enough for me to believe. And just like I said, I believe that people that have a potentially different God, that were raised on a different part of the planet, I believe they're still probably going to go to heaven. Mm-hmm. And it's a different philosophy. So it's different. I think it's different.
And I'm glad you said that, because that'll circle back to why I asked the question, because since the beginning of man, irregardless of who it was, this human species is the only species that has to have a higher power, right? Or we're intelligent enough to be able to know of a possible creator or existence, or and I just find it fascinating. Like, even with Moses, people looked at Moses as a god, Moses literally was an Egyptian. The Egyptians have 40. It's 40. You know, we have the 10 commandments, and I think it's 40, and I can't remember. Rocci knows the name of it. They have 40 commandments. 10 of those 40 commandments Moses had, right? So there's all these weird things that are just like, you know what? I can just say the 10 commandments are just some good standard rules to live by every single day. Why don't we just worry about those instead of debating if they're real or not, or where they came from, the origins? You say the same thing about paganism.
Right.
You know, the strongest Christians, the most devout Christians don't even know 90% of their belief came from a paganistic belief system.
Exactly.
You know, and they're going to fight over Christianity and condemn Halloween. It's just like, you know.
So dumb. There's speaking of suicide, I'm looking for it as you're talking right now. There's a video that got millions and millions of views last week. I don't know if I can find it. I might have sent it to myself, actually. Let me look.
I do that all the time. I created a group. It's a group. It's just me. It's just me, because anything that I need to resort back to, I just post in this group so I go back and look at it.
See, exactly. So this video, God dang it, I didn't send it. So I'll give you the gist. It's two guys. It's talking about men's mental health, and it's two guys that are going to a soccer match, and I think it's from Europe. The game, the commercial. Two guys going to a soccer match, and the one guy is sitting in the one seat, and he's cheering the team on every week, and then they're losing. And he said that his buddy is clearly depressed. His buddy is like, you know, he can't really get into it. He's not feeling it. He just looks miserable. And the other guy's like, oh, you know, outside of this, I wish, you know, things are all, and he's constantly talkative, and you kind of start to see that it's about a guy being depressed. And the thing is, you know, at the end, it says most, you know, many men make it very clear when they're not being themselves. So then you see the guy coming back to his seat, the guy that's coming back to his seat with a little bag of what I would believe is the ashes of his friend, is actually the guy that was depressed. The guy that was depressed survived, but then it says it's actually the ones that are harder to see that happen just as often. So the guy that was the happy, cheery one was actually the one that committed suicide.
Bro.
So it was a really interesting, and that commercial in like a matter of 24 hours, the guy that shared it was, it's CT, and I don't, if I can remember his Instagram handle, it's CT. If you've ever met him or know who he is, CT from Real World. Really interesting guy. He has battled so many demons, that you don't even want to know. Like, and he, you know, he was with Diem. If you ever watch that show, she ended up dying of cancer. God, I wish I remember what it was, because I'm not on the right account, but CT battles with mental illness. He talks about it quite often. Do you remember CT from that show? He was the guy that was like super muscular, great hair, from Boston, talked from Boston. He did all the real world challenges. He was kind of a hothead.
Oh, probably. Anybody from Boston's a hothead, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And he's super interesting guy. It's like super interesting. But anyways, he's in the last several years really been very outgoing and not outgoing, but upfront about his battles with that. So, Famous for Nothing. I think that's what it is. That's what his
you got the video?
It's gonna take me a second to find it. Go ahead and do all the ad runs, and I'll come if I can find it.
Let's rock and roll, because it's MyPillow, folks. MyPillow.com. Just go to MyPillow.com. Use the code Meatball and get up to 70 to 80% off. They're doing Christmas specials right now. They're doing Thanksgiving specials right now. They're doing end of year closeouts right now. You're talking up to 70 or 80% off. MyPillow.com. Code Meatball, or just go to MyPillow.com/Meatball. And then, of course, Verve Spray Vitamins, VerveSprayVitamins.com. Use code R&R and get 30% off. I'm telling you, you want the COVID pack? What you want to do is get the daily multivitamin. You want to get the vitamin C and zinc, and then the energy with the B12 to get you through a day. Get those three. You're going to be good every single day. And of course, CenturyH2O.com. Use code Russo10 for 10% off of the top quality, most highest filtered water concentration filters.
It's got a really good carbon filter. We'll say that.
It has a really good carbon filter.
It's actually got two. Do you see how there's two there? One is the carbon filter. It's a special carbon filter that is not patentable. They don't even tell you how they do it. They filter everything out. Then the next one actually adds oxygen, adds magnesium, and adds flavor. It makes it taste better, and it's going to give you a little extra pizzazz. That's the good stuff about Century H2O.
Get it underneath your sink as soon as you can.
All right, so here we go. Let's play this real quick.
Oh, wow. How you doing? You good? Oh, sorry, thank you. How you doing? God, it's exciting, isn't it? Hey?
I feel bad now. I've given it away.
How's the week?
You okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because at times it can be obvious who's, oh shoot, what did it say? Be someone who is dealing with mental illness. If you couldn't read it. But sometimes the signs are hard to spot.
Oh, wow. How you doing? You good? Oh, sorry.
There it is. It's a good commercial.
My God, man.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me too, like the Robin Williams. And, you know, there's been plenty of times in my life, dude, where I felt so much pain that I work so hard to prevent people from feeling the same pain I do.
Yeah.
And so making them smile is part of my medicine, I guess. I don't know, but I totally understand and empathize with that video, dude. It's deep.
Can you, speaking of Robin Williams, that's a tough one because can you imagine being, and I would say Robin Williams is the 5 best of all time to ever be a comedian. The best, like there doesn't get much better. And obviously finding out later on that he had the early onset Parkinson's, I believe what it was, to have that, and that goes to your suicide comment. Like, how do you deal with that when you were so superhuman? Also, from what everybody will tell you, some of the best comedians are a little bit tormented.
Yep.
To then get to that point where your comedy is 80% physical, and yeah, getting old is tough, but getting old is still a little bit more natural than having something like a Parkinson's, which probably is a direct relation to his drug use and hard life and all that stuff potentially. That's the time I never say that I understand suicide.
Well, I asked the same question too. When people have a chronic terminal illness, and they have 3 weeks left to live. And in those 3 weeks, they are going to deteriorate until they die from gurgling on their own fucking venom or their own spit. You know what I mean? Sorry about that.
No, I got you.
You know, there's people out there that would say, okay, there's no turning back. I'm going to die. It's 100% guaranteed. So why don't I just eat this little piece of chocolate and let my family see me die like this and with a little dignity instead of letting this cancer take my life and eat me from the inside out and have my family witness this for the next 3 weeks. I couldn't be mad at somebody for that, bro.
I can't like assisted suicide. I don't know if that's a liberal or conservative, but I think it's a liberal belief.
It would be a liberal belief because anybody strongly rooted in their Christianity
won't believe that.
It goes against their belief. Yeah.
I do think that there needs to be boundaries to it. And the problem is that it's such a hard scale to pinpoint exactly like what is terminal enough? Like, who are you to judge what's terminal enough? Who are you to allow this to happen? It has a very gray area, which makes it difficult. I like to avoid the gray areas in something like this, which would essentially just be to say to not allow it. But I think it's cruel. We allow it for animals and not for humans.
Well, no. So here's an area that's not gray is that in Sweden, they allow euthanasia.
Right.
And they allowed a 13-year-old girl to take her own life because of depression.
See, that's too much.
That's too much. 100% too much. Well, I'm referring to a chronic terminal illness that is going to make you deteriorate. You know what I mean?
Lou Gehrig's disease,
Yes.
Huntington's chorea, some of these, which again, I'm a fight. I want to fight, and I want to be an inspiration. That if I were to ever, I always said, if I were to become paraplegic or quadriplegic or any of these things, I would want to fight. And show that I can fight. But I'm also different than a lot of people, and I understand that difference. So,
but why though? Is it because how people are taught? Because you were taught to be a fighter. It was how you were raised. It was how you were produced. It was through experiences that molded you to win. So why do people?
But I've also been blessed to be somebody that has had very little experience with depression. I always have a positive attitude. Not always, mostly have a positive. I'm more positive than most, and that could be anything from upbringing to what I think it's a very wide set of reasons, circumstances, faith, and I mean chemical imbalances lead to that too. So I think it goes deeper than that. I just think some people are built for it, some are not. And who's to say that when shit hits the fan, that I am built for it? I believe that I am, because I mentally have told myself that's who I am. But who knows? Like I could surprise myself and want to give up. And I'm sure there's days that no matter how inspirational somebody is, they want to give up as well. It's just life.
That's a real thing too. But, and I tell people there's a lot of things that I probably shouldn't go public with that I talk about, but there's a lot of reasons why I go public, because I know me. And I know sometimes that when I force certain things upon me, like going public with certain things, it forces me to make sure that I adhere and make sure I do what I say I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? It kind of forces me to do it. Otherwise, sometimes we become lazy, and it's easy to say we're going to do a bunch of things and we don't do it. So I kind of put that pressure on me for that reason. I'll go public with, like I said, hey, one of these days I'm going to move to Texas. And that was 4 years before I did. It took me 4 years, and I talked shit for 4 years. And then one day, guess what? Here I am. It's like, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I was so used to it not happening, man. I just wasn't ready for when it really did.
So you had a special guest in for some shooting this last couple days ago or whatever. It was about the Boston bombing. So who'd you have in?
We had Mark Fucarell came to the Meatball Studios. They're starting a campaign. This is a great freaking idea, man. Now Mark, he was the Boston bomber actually bumped into him. So when he was putting the backpack next to the tree where the backpack was placed, he bumped into Mark during that process. And there's actually a video where you see Mark and him. Mark turns around like, what are you doing? Because he's from Boston. But he's starting this mobile app, and it's going to be just like a Facebook, but it's literally for anybody and everybody that's in or around the special needs community, adults, caregivers, people with special needs, people that maybe you're in a car accident, lost your leg, you need resources, and you need to find a community. This place will have communities for people to help you reach out, save you a lot of time, money, and resources. And boy, when he told me about it, he's starting a campaign on Kickstarter. He needed to get this video done. So he came here, we shot it. It turned out excellent. And he's going to get the Kickstarter going. The app is actually already up and going, and it's in beta stage. Yep. So, and
what is it?
It's called, it's MARC. Okay. And in the description of the show, I'll have the link. If you guys want to go check that out. I just signed up. Miracle League's getting signed up. It's fresh. It's new. So I'm going to be part of the campaign on trying to get the word out nationwide to get everybody involved globally.
Kickstarter is interesting because Kickstarter is like, well, you can try anything out, and you can all of a sudden, become a millionaire in your product. Kickstarter requires capital. It's funny. People are like, the point of Kickstarter is to get capital. If you don't have a marketing strategy that has some dollar bills behind it, like if anybody wants to start a company and a product and they want to use Kickstarter, it's a great idea, but make sure that you're going to need to raise money before you're on Kickstarter to pay for the marketing of the Kickstarter so people can find it and then trip the algorithm so that people are buying your product. So it's not just like, I have a great idea, I'm going to put it on Kickstarter, just so people know.
He's 10-year vested, and he didn't even consider the Kickstarter till the last 4 or 5 months.
Nice.
10 years into it. So he's literally trying to work out all the kinks in this kind of stuff and the knowledge, dude, this ain't easy. A lot of people don't realize what you need to know. What were we talking about before we went live tonight? We're talking about all these different places. Where can we go to try to cut some of our post-production time? There's a lot of work involved to a 1-hour show. And so it's just one of those things that's just trying to dial all that stuff in and lock and load. And It's just not what people think it is.
So go back to Boston bombing. What? So Boston bombing was like one of the more formative moments in my life. And it's interesting to think of why, because, and I know why for me. I'm a marathon runner. I can tell you right now that where that bombing happened, based on the map, was exactly where, when I ran my first marathon in Houston, where my mom and grandfather were watching me finish. I could tell it was within 50 yards either way of where the explosion happened. So I resonated with that community, that whole event. But at the end of the day, you have to look at it like this, Rocky. There was just a shooting this last week, obviously in Lewiston, that killed 16 people, 18 people, whatever it was.
19, yeah.
Injured many. That was a much bigger massacre than the Boston bombing. And it was a big deal, obviously, on the news. The Boston bombing, 3-4 people died. Was it 4 in the end?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I think it was 3. 3 and then a police officer, whatever it was. And then a lot of people were injured, lost limbs. To me, from a news perspective, take away 9/11, that was one of the biggest stories in the last 2 decades, was the Boston bombing. Why was it, in your opinion, that was such a big deal?
Because there was the big explosion.
You think so?
It was marketable. Yes, it was marketable. It was marketable? Yes. You know what was really weird is that shooting you just referred to?
Yeah.
I purposely didn't say nothing all day, and I came home, and I was starting asking people, I'm like, so what do you think of that shooting that happened in Maine? And they're like, what shooting? And I thought to myself, bro, I go, here we are in the United States. 18 people just got shot to death. And the guy was on the run for 2 days. And you had to go out of your way to find that story.
And I wonder, and the thing is, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't fit the narrative that would be hidden. He was a white guy. Like he was
really weird.
That's the whole thing was weird that it was hidden. He did buy the firearms legally. He did buy them recently, however. He was
kind of reminds me like the Las Vegas situation.
You think it's Las Vegas-y?
It is very Las Vegas. Yeah, because they don't make stories like this disappear when 18 people got massacred.
Yeah.
Dude, you look at Boston bombing where 3 people died. And it was on the news nonstop for a week.
So I can tell you why I think honestly, I can tell you why there's a difference from most stories in Boston, the Boston bombing. The Lewiston story is still mind-boggling to me. That one's just weird. I mean, there was signs. There were people that said, you got to watch out for this guy beforehand because he was losing his mind.
Okay.
It's weird. It is very, very odd to me. So I don't know why that was covered, but I can tell you I have a difference in opinion on the Boston story.
Okay.
There's certain things in the United States of America that are sacred. I think sporting events are one of them. So that is a place of such peace and trust. And it did end up being foreign nationals or whatever you want to call them, to actual terrorists that hated America. Let's not beat around the bush. They were Muslim. They hated America. And there was something about it because it just served an event that is typically full of joy and peace. And I think that's why it was such a big deal, because there's certain places, like at an airport, you feel like you got to be careful at which, even though there's all the security at certain, things, post offices, people go crazy. There's certain things where it's like, I could see where that could happen. Whereas at an event like this, there's so much trust put in people, and it took that serenity and it blew it up. And I think that's why it was such a big deal, in my opinion. I think it was rightfully so a big deal because of the kind of event it was. And in America, we do, and not only was it a marathon, it's considered the most. You've got New York City, Chicago, and then Boston. Boston's the only one that requires qualification, and it's the most famous. It's the oldest. I think that's part of it. Near the finish line, I think it was an element all the way around. So I don't think it was kind of a propaganda situation. I think it really truly was.
That makes sense. It really does. It makes logical sense.
The serenity of America. 9/11 broke our belief, just like Pearl Harbor did, that we are this impenetrable, strong nation. Oklahoma City bombing had a similar feel to it. And then although there was only 3 or 4 people, there was something about that was different. And it almost made it heroic afterwards. Like, Big Papi, going back to baseball, when Big Papi got on microphone and when they came back to play and said, "This is our fucking city," there was nothing better than that. There was Big Papi when he gave this big what the hell is Big Papi? What?
Who's Big Papi?
Are you serious?
Yes.
Who's Big Papi? Ortiz.
Biggie. Can't you?
David Ortiz.
Oh, okay. Ortiz, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean the legend, the guy that went completely ham in October, I believe, that year. He was the one that came out and they gave the speech. He was Mr. Boston at the time, and he said, it's yada yada yada, but remember, this is our fucking city.
I think I remember that.
Went nuts.
Yeah, I think I remember that actually.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. All right.
So that's my belief on the Boston bombing. Before we get out of here, though, we gotta have a little bit of fun. So fun fact with gloves, and we've been talking about this. Casey's been making fun of this. If I were to ask you the question, because Kelly asked me the question, she goes, "Can I put gloves and socks in the microwave?" What would your answer have been?
The right answer would be no.
What would your answer have been if I would have asked?
Would be, well, if they're a little moist, microwaves do heat moisture from the inside out. If you put it in for a few seconds, you might be okay. That would have been my answer.
So moisture was my concern as well. Yours was actually saying it was okay. So I think it was just because they were cold and sitting outside. So I said, I believe it should be fine if they're not wet. I would watch them very carefully and just see what happens and be ready to pull if needed. Oh. So the problem was she did the socks first. And the socks were fine. She put them in for they ended up staying in there for over a minute. They warmed up just great. The gloves, however, in a matter of 10 seconds, started to blow up. And I think that the comfort zone of the socks maybe she said she was watching intently.
But
don't know if I fully believe that.
What were the gloves made out of, though? So what's the material difference?
Seems the same, but these were cell phone usable gloves. So there's no metal, but there is some kind of coating that allows you to use your fingertips. And that's what blew up. So she said the microwave was engulfed in flames on the inside. Yep. She couldn't open it up fast enough, and then all of a sudden, all of her fingertips were just blown to bits on these gloves. And almost blew up her horse trailer.
You know what's really weird?
What?
Is that you can put a box Zelda bug in a microwave and cook it as long as you want, and it ain't gonna die. You can put a box Zelda bug in a freezer for an entire year and take it out, and it's gonna thaw out and come back to life.
Really? So what's the end of this story? How do you kill them?
You don't. You step on them. You cannot kill a box elder bug by putting
what
it
is
in
a box elder?
microwave.
You didn't know who Big Papi was. What is it? Is this like a beetle of some kind?
Yeah, they're just a little, during the spring and fall, you get those little red and gray bugs on the side of your house. They're just, I don't know if you have them in Texas. Okay. Do you have them in Texas? I don't know if you have them down here or not. But they're little beetles. Cockroaches are the same thing. You can't kill a cockroach. You can put it in the freezer for a year and take it out, and it's going to thaw and come back to life. You can watch it, bro. You can watch it come back to life.
That's crazy.
There's bacteria out there when a bumblebee somehow puts a bacteria in crap, ants eat it, it hypnotizes the ant, and the bacteria dictates what the ant does. The ant dies, and the bacteria drives the ant.
Speaking of that, I have to make a quick correction to, speaking of how things react, to Cocaine Bear, which we talked about on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
The true story behind it was, there is a true story. There was a bear, there was cocaine, all that's true. The bear died in real life 35 to 40 minutes later. It had a nickname of Pablo Escobar, and it did not kill any actual individuals. It just, they made the movie to make it a little bit more fun.
It kind of takes the fun out of everything.
It did. It kind of, it ruined it because the people that the bear killed were kind of assholes in parts of the movie. Lastly, we'll talk. I want to watch the whole interview with Elon Musk and Joe Rogan. We'll talk more about that next week.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think
we got the softball game.
And the softball game. We got a lot of stuff to talk about next week. Keep an eye out for live streams and everything else from Russo, myself, and the Celebrity Softball Classic this Saturday, November 4th. You're going to see us. We're going to be rocking and rolling. CelebritySoftballClassic.org. Hey, we're trying to get to $500,000, man. It's a pivotal point. We're close. If you can donate $5, celebritysoftballclassic.org. We appreciate it.
Don't be a bitch.
Don't be a bitch. Russo, I love you, brother.
Love you too. Take it easy.